Greetings, everyone, and welcome back for another edition of Narrative, The Road to 100 with Black AI Media. I'm Cedric Scott Jr., your host, and we have an amazing guest today. We're going to be talking about some creative aspects, implementation of AI, really making some waves in the world and supporting other people. We got my good brother, Vincent Hunt. So I want to give him some space. Go ahead, Vincent. Thanks for having you first and foremost. Just give us a little bit of your intro background, and then we'll get into some of our questions.
Man, I appreciate that, man. And thank you for having me, man. This is such an important, conversation that we're having, especially at this time. It's been 30 years since we've had a technology as disruptive in a good way, as AI, because I'm definitely pro AI and very much pro human as a creative. I play those two and play in those two spheres. But my name is Vincent Hunt. I'm the founder and CEO of an organization called the Bureau of Creative Intelligence. What we do in a nutshell is we actually partner with visionary leaders to help them expand their creative intelligence and accelerate it within themselves and the organizations that they lead. We do that a bunch of different ways. I think our flagship practice is the one that really illuminates that the most, which is called ARC, which is basically an adaptive roadmap to organizational creativity. Because what we do pretty much sits in the management layer of most organizations. So that's like the big part of what we do. Another thing that we do that we're actually rolling out the very first top of 2025 is a whole service called Mirror. And Mirror is designed, it's a reflective model for leadership around the implementation of AI. Because if you start talking about the fear around AI, a lot of it isn't really about the machines and the computing. It's really not about that. If you get down to it, after doing about 250 interviews, what we found was people are more afraid of what other people will do with AI, right? But we actually reflect our fears into the actual system or the machine, the AI in itself. So there's that. So Mirror is a platform, a framework designed to help leaders get through that. And then the third thing that we do that I'm super excited about, which I'm sure we'll talk a lot about here on in this interview, which is Curious Robot Studios. We were fortunate enough to work with schools, CSUSA, Charter Schools USA, to actually develop the very first AI filmmaking program for middle school students in the world. So super, super, super happy about that. Was able to roll that up. And we just deployed that about 2 weeks ago. We went into some pre-production work. This week was the official start. We've been in the classroom with the students, getting their hands, dirty with some of the tools. Really exciting. I am a professional entrepreneur. I never say serial. I don't say serial entrepreneur. I only attach cereal to Killers and Captain Crunch. I am a professional entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur, man, all my life. I couldn't remember a time when I didn't think about how I could actually capitalize and build business and actually open up opportunities for people, even at a very young age. But I started my very first official business, Studio Verso, when I was about 24 years old in Indianapolis, Indiana, at the dawn of the web, not internet, but the web, commercial web as we know it. I started that studio, ran that studio for about 3 or 4 years before selling my position in that company, getting a golden umbrella, and then going into more consulting work. Because at that time, if you can remember that far back, right, 1997, 98, it was all about all of a sudden you had very technical people in the same space with very creative people, and they don't always mesh. You got creative people who want to do all the most extraordinary things, and then the technical people saying it's not possible. So I was helping organizations understand that the duality of those relationships and how to actually build cultures of creativity and innovation with those things in place. So did that for a while, went on to do some more work in the design thinking space, started executing that within organizations at scale, and then really helping organizations build cultures of creativity and innovation at a much bigger level. And then ultimately, if I fast forward through a whole bunch of other stuff that I've done along the way, I started the Bureau of Creative Intelligence. This will be our fourth year in the mix, doing what we do. And again, we get behind visionary leaders, and a lot of our work shows up under their brand name. So we're kind of like innovation ghostwriters. So that's pretty much my background.
And that's, yeah, first I want to say, much respect to 4 years, first and foremost. And then also being in education myself,
Come
I've
on.
seen the work that you've been doing with middle schoolers in terms of filmmaking. And I got to commend you on that because
Appreciate that.
also to find out that you are the first, right, in that flagship of that space and driving what that's going to look like in the future. Because other people, inevitably they're going to be like, oh, well, that's great, let me jump on board, right? and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
how can
yeah.
we do that? And to know that you made that stake and said, well, we're going to launch this thing and propel young people into what this looks like into the future, and just even the thought behind it is compelling. So shout
But
outs
you
to you
know
for
what?
that. And I've seen, yeah, just even some of your work that you shared on LinkedIn and different
Yeah.
platforms. I was like, man, this what wait, what? This
I think the thing about it though, brother, it's like it's really interesting because when you think about the prompt, right? The original prompt came from a superintendent asking Vince, how are we going to implement AI into schools? And after about 2 months of just doing research, because I'm not an educator, right? I'm not in the education space per se, right? Like traditional education. And so I was like, I don't know, but I know it's going to be tough because everything that I'm seeing out here, it's very polarized. You're either in or you're out. You've got some, states just completely banning AI altogether, saying it's cheating. There's all these different things, and a lot of it is hinged in fear. So after about 2 months of infiltrating some of the groups on like LinkedIn and stuff with other educators to hear what they're talking about, I came to the conclusion, and doing again some more, because we love to do tons of interviews. We love to get insight and information because that leads a lot of our design thinking practice. But like when you ask educators, about implementing AI into the classroom, there is fear. There's a lot of fear. And if we boil it back, right, it really sits in some really, really human places, right? Like it's going to come and take my job. What do you need me for if that thing can do it, right? And if you think about AI, it is one of the very first technologies that we've seen that has broken down the door of the monument of our mind, right? You got all these intelligent people, and we've been in the knowledge economy now for a long time, right? So you got to think about people who have spent their lives building knowledge, where now all of a sudden knowledge is at your fingertips, and we're going into the wisdom economy. So in that, you're gonna have a ton of resistance from teachers, not just because they don't like the technology, because a lot of them are using it to write lessons plans and all that kind. They just don't want it taking their jobs if they're honest, right? So the way Curious Robot Studios was born was this idea. You had a couple of other smaller prompts. You had Tyler Perry in his studios doing an $800 million project. Soro comes to the forefront where we're now doing AI video, right? And he pulls back. He's like, wait a minute, something new is coming. So that to us was an indicator. Another indicator was where you've got, Runway partnering with Lionsgate. Okay, that's another indicator. And you've got a whole generation of creators who they've stripped art out of the classroom. Start connecting the dots, right? So you say, okay, what if we don't go in Miss Jackie's civics class with AI? What if we create a whole program that sits by itself that's not threatening to anybody? In fact, it's fun. It's filmmaking, which then in turn is a whole nother class of people that will be in the workforce, in the skills force, right? And we're still introducing them to AI, ethical use, intelligent use of the tools, moral use, get the moral compass right, and understanding prompt engine. They're doing all the stuff, right? They're just doing it in a form factor that's not threatening to anybody. So yes, I do love it. It's a Trojan horse because those students will then in turn go back into the school and do what they do. But I'm super, super excited about
yeah, that's yeah, amazing. And I think that we can go into a lot of different facets of that, just that conversation within itself,
it.
talking about, of course, the idea and aspect of having the more technical people as well as the creative people in the same space, and how there's just kind of been a little bit of a tug of war I've seen more recently, and with regard to music production and all those types of things, whereas there's a lot of concern, and then also respectful consideration of like the opposite sides of the kind of spectrum, and the polar aspect of the doom and gloom versus the this is amazing, let's run. But I want to reel it back for just 1 second. I want to ask our driving question that I'm asking all of our guests here for
Mhm,
the road to 100, which is considering what we're seeing, what you're doing
mhm.
with this technology right now in time, what does narrative mean to you?
Narrative to me means this. Okay, so let me take a couple steps back, right? So a lot of the work that I've done in the last 10 to 15 years, decade and a half, right, is on the philanthropic side. When you think about it, it's really about tackling the digital